father will hate him on sight. He's cleverer than him, and he's black. She might change her mind.
I've met the man I want to spend my life with.
Are you insane? White, British, and she's a salesman's daughter.
My grandfather was a king. I am his heir. I have a responsibility to return home to my people. I will never achieve anything worthwhile if I leave my heart here.
I am the government's representative in Southern Africa. The policy of apartheid. You know this word. If you choose to marry the leader of an African nation, you will be responsible for the downfall of the British Empire in Africa. Have you no shame?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. I'm Matt, that's Christy, this is Alonzo. We are here to talk about a United Kingdom British film. Who's going to describe it?
I will. Right. So this is based on the true story of the former King of Botswana, back when it was still called Bechuanaland and was a British protectorate, and how he dared to bring home his white British wife to rule as the queen of their people, and how that created an international uproar. It stars David Oyelowo and Rosamund Pike, and it is very prestige-y and safe. Take a look, please.
No man is free who is not master of himself.
She's stronger than either of us suspected.
It is time for us to create a new nation. For us to be the masters of our own fate. It is time.
Yeah, so the thing I said in my review for RogerEbert.com was, for a movie about two people who are about to risk everything and lose everything for each other, you know, their families and their physical safety at times and their entire countries, like, this movie plays it very safe and is restrained and tasteful to a fault. Like,
yeah.
Beautifully shot and well acted, and you know, you got David Oyelowo and Rosamund Pike, and these are actors who can do no wrong, and at the beginning at least they have some really lovely chemistry with each other. During their courtship, I feel like it crackles and it's fun,
right.
And it's paced well. And then, ironically, as the stakes increase, as they go back to Africa, it gets less interesting. It gets kind of boring, actually.
Yeah, for two performers I love,
Yeah.
and I think they're really great. And it's one of those movies where, you know, it's the true story, and then at the closing credits they show you the pictures of the real people. And when I saw those, and you see like the real newspaper headlines, you're like, oh wow, this is a fascinating story. Somebody should make a movie of this. But the one they made is so plodding, and you're right, it's super safe and so kind of tastefully genteel and BBC about everything. It is drained of all life.
Yeah, and a lot of it too is that these are two people who must have been really interesting, complicated figures,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Given that, you know, it's 1947 when they meet and fall in love, and an interracial marriage like that wasn't exactly a normal thing, and they defy the odds to stick by each other, and they're apart for long stretches, and she has to give birth while he's still in London, and
you know, the UK is having to like be shitty about it because they don't want to piss off South Africa, because they need the gold and the uranium.
And they got apartheid.
You know, and apartheid's happening, and so like there's on paper this all sounds fascinating,
Right.
and somehow Ama Asante, who directed Belle, which I didn't see, I guess, but British period racism is her wheelhouse. That's what that movie's about too. Just does not find any of the dramatic juice in this story.
Or the characters, like the two of them are just singularly virtuous. No matter what obstacle or challenge comes their way, they say the absolute right poignant thing at the right moment. At one point, Seretse Khama, who is David Oyelowo, like clears all the papers off of his desk, like shorthand for like, I'm pissed and I've had it, and he should be, but like that's the rare flash of any kind of emotion other than like, you know, just doing the right thing and being virtuous and true.
Right, you don't see like the frustration and the moments of doubt in this one. You know, one of the things that's frustrating about this movie is that, look, this is it's a fascinating story, and I think that that in 2017, when you're doing a story, and this on a certain level goes a little bit for Loving as well, when you're presented with the idea of pushback around an interracial couple, like in you know, especially like for those of us on the West Coast, but in 2017, you're like, wait, people got mad that interracial couples would get together? And I think the pressure's on the film to really ratchet that up and show you kind of the day-to-day pushback that you would get, right? And there's a moment in Loving where somebody brings up that the idea of bringing mixed race children into the world is a sin, and they say that to Ruth Nega's character, to Mildred Loving. This doesn't really do much on that. It doesn't really address why people were so crazy about it, why people had such an issue, and it's just, it gets political, but people had, part of why this was an issue is because people had really deep-seated emotion about it. And this movie really doesn't touch on that. And it makes me think, if this movie came out 30 years ago, we'd all be like, oh, this is great. But it's 30 years too late. And the world we live in now, I think the burden is on the movie to really show what that kind of bigotry and prejudice was like.
Yeah,
and this movie doesn't do that.
It's not that racism is over, and certainly even overt racism is back. It's hot in 2017. But you're right. You do have to kind of make that stuff clearer to, I think, a contemporary audience, or at least with the same kind of level of discomfort and the vitriol that they must have had to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And this movie, I think, could have really taken a unique look at, here's a guy who is a king of a nation in Africa, and still gets treated like he can go into the whites-only hotel, but he's got to go in through the back door. There's an odd kind of confluence of where race and class and aristocracy and wealth kind of bump up against each other, and the movie doesn't have much to say about that.
And he can't have a drink.
Oh, yeah, you can't have alcohol.
Rosamund Pike wants to have a gin and tonic or something
Gin
like
and
that,
lime.
and she can't have it because she's his wife, and he can't drink because he's black.
Right.
Even though he's the king. There's one really interesting scene, and the film could have used more of it, and it's from the perspective of the people in Botswana land. When he first brings her home, she's not necessarily welcomed with open arms either, and she gets an earful from Seretse Khama's aunt and also his sister.
Yes.
And there's a piercing kind of truth to that. How can he bring you home? How can you be a queen of our people? And that hits at some of the truth of this that is missing elsewhere.
That's the most uncomfortable scene in the movie, and it's the best scene in the movie.
Yeah. There's a passion to it that is lacking elsewhere. Yeah. And as far as passion goes, they have a nice chemistry with each other, but I never really felt how deep their connection must have been for them to go
risk
to
it
this
all,
extent for each other.
They both like jazz a lot.
They
learned that
dance,
much.
They like jazz. They've got a nice flirty chemistry.
It's they'd have a nice friendship, but you don't see this moment of I have to be
overwhelming
with this
passion,
one, and there's no one else. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I know I'm making I'm making a complicated decision by being with somebody like this, but that's the one for me. You don't feel that.
It's if you're doing Edward and Mrs. Simpson, those two have to really, because there's a lot at stake here.
It's very pretty though, because you have a great contrast between the chilly fogginess of London and then the warm sweeping vistas of
The color
Africa.
gradient in this movie is crazy. Every time they're in London, it's totally gray and overcast, and the second they get to Africa, it's Mad Max Fury Road, orange and blue.
Right, and giraffes galloping in slow motion. No, it's very pretty and well made, well acted.
So tasteful.
The script is kind of
so
terrible.
tasteful.
The script is not good. So my number's a 5.7.
What did I say?
You said 5.5.
5.5. Yeah, I mean it's but it's just lacking in.
Yeah, I give it a 6. It's fine.
Right, we're saying 5.7, right? 5.8?
Yeah.
I'll say 5.8. We'll round.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know. It's math.
It's in the 80s on the tomato meter right
and
now.
I think a lot of that is just people are it's probably a lot of 2.5-star reviews that make it
Yeah, it's one of those ones where a lot of the fresh tomatoes it's fine.
It's one of those take your grandma
fine.
movies. We like the take your grandma movies around here. All right. Bye-bye.